Thank you very much for the opportunity.
I don't like your face. I'm canceling your state's grant money. Congress is deeply worried about the opioid crisis and mental health issues. So last year, we allocated more than $7 billion for the prevention and treatment of these conditions. I'm asking you, if Secretary Kennedy wakes up in a bad mood one morning,
To do is review the code and all the code provisions.
I just read you the code language. Did you have any problem understanding it?
What happens when the federal government starts yanking mental health funding from states, not because they broke the rules, but because they voted the wrong way? I just watched a clip of Senator Elizabeth Warren going after a nominee to be top lawyer at HHS, and yeah, she came loaded with questions. But here's the thing. While she thinks she's the one holding people accountable, what she really did was expose the very thing she's trying to cover up. This is The Prodigy Unfiltered. Welcome back to the channel.
So, Congress is deeply worried about the opioid crisis and mental health issues. So last year, we allocated more than $7 billion for the prevention and treatment of these conditions. Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. heads the Department of Health and Human Services, which is charged by law with administering that funding through the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, SAMHSA. Mr. Stewart, if confirmed, you will be the top lawyer at HHS advising Secretary Kennedy. So let's do a little law so that we can understand what kind of advice you would give to the Secretary. 42 U.S.C. 300X-55 says HHS shall terminate SAMHSA grants only if, quote, a state has materially failed to comply with the agreements or other conditions required for the receipt of the grant. That is the only condition under which Congress says these grants can be canceled. So, Mr. Stewart, let's start easy. I've read you the statutory language. Can Secretary Kennedy wake up in a bad mood one morning and simply say to the worker who is running a suicide hotline, I don't like your face, I'm canceling your state's grant money?
Well, let me first respond by saying thank you very much for the opportunity, and I look forward to working with you in the future. I did receive your letter.
I appreciate that, but we're very limited on time. Would that be legal?
What I can tell you is that in every instance, I'll give the advice of complying with the law. No, that's not the question
I asked. I'm asking you, if Secretary Kennedy wakes up in a bad mood one morning, can he say to somebody, I don't like your face, so I'm canceling your state's SAMHSA grant?
Well, what I'd like to do is review the code and all the code provisions.
I just read you the code language. Did you have any problem understanding it? You can only do cancellation if a state has materially failed to comply with the agreements or other conditions required for the receipt of the grant. That's all it says.
The key words, though, are the agreements and the terms of those.
You think there's an agreement out there that says that the Secretary can cancel a grant because I don't like your face?
No, so I think that, I don't believe that's been the case. I don't believe that's ever happened.
I have no reason. I'm asking you about the legal advice you will give. And I want to understand, under a statute that says these are the only conditions under which a grant can be canceled, do you think Secretary Kennedy can say, I don't like your face, so I'm canceling your grant?
So accepting that term, I don't like your face, what I'm telling you is that the terms and conditions of those agreements matter, and so we have to review those.
I don't think any of them say, I don't like your face.
No, I agree with you on this, but I haven't heard Secretary...
Look, we're 3 minutes into this. Can I just have a, yeah, that would be illegal?
That you can't cancel a contract, to my knowledge, because you don't like somebody's face.
Okay, let's do a second one. What if Secretary Kennedy wakes up in a bad mood and he said, I heard you're a Republican, and it turns out I really don't like Republicans, so I'm going to cancel your grant for your addiction treatment center. You think that would be legal?
Secretary, I think that there's a formula to review these things. I believe Secretary Kennedy would go to council and ask for these things.
I'm asking if the Secretary wanted to do that, he wanted to cancel all the grants that are held by Republicans, would that be legal?
My advice would be to follow the rules and the laws with respect to every one of these. You are the one who's
supposed to tell him how to interpret a statute that says the only conditions or if the state is not meeting the terms of the contract.
We've got to meet the terms of the contract. If they're outside the terms of the contract, it can be canceled.
Okay, so can he cancel because you're a Republican?
If it's not included in the terms of the contract, no.
Bingo. Okay, so the answer is that would be illegal, right? How about the third one? Your work is no longer necessary. Your state's grant is canceled. Let's just say there's nothing in the contract about whether the work is necessary. Would it be illegal to cancel the grant under those conditions?
That's not as easy a question as simply saying yes or no. Well, listen, we've got to be able to look in terms of the intent of these contracts as well.
No, that's not what the statute says. And you are the lawyer who is giving advice to Secretary Kennedy. And so I want to know, as the person who gives advice, when you read statutory language that says there's only one condition under which you can do this, and that is if the state has materially failed to comply with the agreements or other conditions, that you can cancel the grant. And by the way, you have to give notice in a hearing for doing that. Can he wake up and say, we decided we don't need you anymore?
My advice
if that's not in the grant.
My advice will always be to follow the terms and agreements.
So in this case, you would say you can't do that, Mr. Secretary.
I will give the advice to follow the terms of both the code and those agreements.
Okay, and if the contract doesn't say that, you will tell the Secretary not to do it.
In every instance, we will follow the terms and conditions and make sure we follow the code.
Well, I really hope you do follow the terms and conditions in the agreement, because that is exactly the letter that Secretary Kennedy sent, canceling projects all over this country, and the only grounds he gave were grounds that are not in the contract and clearly in violation of the law. So I hope, Mr. Stewart, based on what you've said, you will deliver that message to Secretary Kennedy and give advice that is consistent with the law in the future. Thank you.
Today we're diving into a Senate exchange that reveals a much deeper issue than what they're talking about on the surface. Let me break it down for you. So here's what happened. Congress approved over $7 billion for mental health and opioid addiction treatment. Good. That's money that should go directly to helping real Americans who are struggling, not to line pockets, push political agendas, or punish people based on their beliefs. Now, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is currently running the Department of Health and Human Services. He's in charge of distributing this money through grants. And guess what? He's been canceling those grants left and right, with no clear legal basis for doing it. So, what's happening? Warren questions Mr. Stewart, the guy nominated to be HHS's top legal advisor. She asks him a bunch of hypothetical questions. Can the secretary cancel a grant just because he doesn't like someone's face? Or because they're Republican? Sounds ridiculous, right? Well, guess what? That's not hypothetical. That's a real concern. Because that's exactly the kind of behavior this administration is being accused of. Warren even reads the actual law, 42 U.S.C. 300-55, plain as day. It says HHS can only cancel a grant if a state materially fails to meet the terms of the agreement. That's it. It's clear. No room for interpretation. It doesn't say, unless you're in a bad mood, or unless you hate red states, or unless you don't like their religion. It says the only legal reason to cancel is failure to comply with the agreement. So, why did Secretary Kennedy cancel projects all over the country, citing reasons that are not even in the contracts? That's a direct violation of law. Not a misunderstanding. Not a gray area. That is illegal. Period. And here's what really gets me. Warren knows this. She even admits it at the end. She calls out Kennedy herself, but somehow tries to shift all the weight onto Stewart, the guy who hasn't even started the job yet. Let's not pretend we don't see what's going on here. This administration is more than happy to weaponize federal agencies to target conservatives, Christians, red states, anyone who dares step out of line with their radical agenda. If you're a Republican governor using grant money responsibly to fight addiction, canceled. If you're running a faith-based organization helping people recover, defund it. If you're not marching to the drum of DEI, ESG, or whatever new acronym they invent next week, cut off. They want control, not accountability. And Kennedy, despite all the talk about independent thinking, is showing that he'll play ball with the radical left if it keeps him in power. Let me tell you something, viewers, this isn't just about legal jargon or Senate hearings. This is about your community losing resources, your tax dollars being misused, and your values being punished. Imagine a rural county relying on this grant money to fund addiction services. Maybe your cousin, your neighbor, your friend is fighting to stay clean. And suddenly, DC says, nope, we're pulling funding, not because the program failed, but because the person running it once posted a pro-life article on Facebook. That's what this is about. Now, I may not agree with Elizabeth Warren on much. Let's be honest. We probably don't agree on anything, but even she couldn't deny that the law is the law. But here's what separates patriots from politicians like her. We don't just speak truth when it's convenient. We demand it every time. If any administration, Democrat or Republican, is using taxpayer dollars as a weapon to punish political opponents, that is tyranny, not governance. And we the people will not stand for it. So what can you do? Contact your senators. Let them know you're watching this nomination process and demand accountability at HHS. Share this video with your friends, especially those who think this is just partisan noise. It's not. It's about the rule of law. And most importantly, stay informed and stay bold. Because if we don't fight for fairness and freedom now, we'll lose them both. That's all for today, patriots. This wasn't just a hearing, it was a warning. And if we care about liberty, truth, and real service to the American people, we need to pay attention. This is Prodigy Unfiltered. Like, share, subscribe, and stay in the fight. God bless America.